Thanks very much, Count Corlin. I'd like to thank Deputy Sherlock for drafting and bringing forward this legislation to the House this afternoon. And the Green Party has long pushed for household waste collection to be brought back under public control. And I think this proposal here today is a good example of how we might do this without opting maybe for full remunicipalisation and the risks that could entail in terms of the burden it could potentially place on local authorities. And I believe that waste collection needs to be seen as a public service and one that is fully integrated into our circular economy frameworks. And this bill would create a situation where we can retain an element of competition, but it would be for a market rather than within a market. And that would avoid a lot of the inefficiencies, a lot of the risks that we see with the current model. And the solution is to rationalise the current system, put local authorities back at the centre of waste management processes, and use this to get a better handle on pricing and on illegal dumping through contracts that are right for each specific area, instead of the one-size-fits-all model that we have at the moment and isn't actually working for anywhere. The second part of this legislation, which would place a direct duty on landlords to ensure an adequate waste collection service for their tenants, is a really important one. And this mirrors draft legislation that my colleague Janet Horner was involved in 2024, which would have significantly helped with issues around illegal dumping in urban areas. And this bill also tackles significant inefficiencies which emerge under the current competition within the market model. Under the current system, it is not uncommon to see several bin lorries from different companies driving down the exact same residential street on different days of the week. And under a single permit model, we would have rationalised routes which access all homes at the same time, and this clearly doesn't make sense from either a cost or an admissions perspective. It would be remiss of me not to specifically reference Dublin City in my comments this evening, as I know that the issues that this bill addresses are in some ways most acute in certain parts of our city. My colleagues on Dublin City Council have been doing some really positive work in this space. The Green Party councillors in Dublin have founded and led on the litter and waste committees for the city, and also on funding additional resources. 100 extra staff have been hired in the public domain team to tackle waste and dumping, and our councillors will continue to fight for a cleaner and greener Dublin. As I mentioned earlier on, my colleague Janet Horner and our former Green Party TD Nasa Horrigan, together they drafted a landlord waste contract bill in 2024 to make it the landlord's responsibility to ensure that tenants have a waste contract in place. And it's really positive to see that aspects of that bill are included in the bill that Deputy Sherlock is bringing forward this evening. And Councillor Horner succeeded in passing a motion in 2024 declaring a litter and dumping emergency in the inner city, and this was followed by a detailed position paper on what the future of waste management in the city might look like, several elements of which are reflected in the bill, and again, that's something I really welcome. Importantly, that research looked at other cities from the case of best practice examples, where each example has limitations, and privatised municipal providers' approach for Dublin has clearly failed the city, it's failed its residents and it's failed its visitors. And too often, waste issues are characterised as a behavioural issue rather than recognising a poorly designed system which makes this system inevitable. And Dubliners deserve a better answer than being blamed personally for the system's failure. A single waste provider for the whole of Dublin City was recommended recently, or in the last 18 months, by the Taoiseach's Dublin City Task Force report, and a report is due to be provided by the department investigating the feasibility of this. But as with so many of the report's recommendations, that has yet to materialise. And it just seems there's no urgency behind the recommendations of the task force anymore, and instead of trying to deliver it, the government is spending time looking for a political excuse and someone else to blame for why they've done nothing. It's important to understand that a waste system that works everywhere in the country does not work in the inner city. And this is due to several factors: short-term tenancies, high number of tourist lettings, flats, apartments, terraced houses, and an overall lack of storage space provided for wheelie bins. And despite it being mandatory for households to be able to separate their organic waste, this remains practically impossible for a significant proportion of inner-city homes, as wheelie bins cannot be stored in flats or in terraced homes. And in the Dublin central area, an average of 50 tonnes a month is being removed by the council in terms of illegally dumped waste, a huge amount of waste. And this is actually more than is collected in an entire year from whole counties elsewhere in the country. Our current model of waste management is a direct contributor to this fact. And the status quo is simply leaving Dublin communities to suffer, and it's clear again that that one-size-fits-all approach that is applied to waste collection in our country, it might suit some of the suburban areas, but it absolutely does not suit our city centre communities. As we know, waste is often an affordability issue as well, and we know not all households, again, particularly those in urban areas, have suitable spaces for storing wheelie bins. They have no outside spaces, and of course they're not allowed to keep them on the footpaths. And this means, in many areas, bags are the notional solution, but these cause issues with seagulls, with foxes, or are intermingled with illegally dumped bags. And again, the net result is our footpaths strewn with waste. I know Dublin City Council recently rolled out a system of waste compactors in the core areas of the city centre. These seem to have been working well, and it's actually similar to what you would see with a lot of cities across the continent. And such a system could work here and would avoid people having to store bins in their homes, which I know is a significant concern for residents in areas like Stoneybatter, like Smithfield. It was something I heard a lot during the recent by-election campaign. One of the biggest criticisms of the current privatised system has to be how ineffective it has been on keeping waste costs down. And I know from my own area how many times residents have raised issues of seemingly arbitrary price increases and extremely opaque pricing structures implemented by the large waste companies. And many have also pointed to the illusion of choice in the current system, whereby having multiple providers all essentially providing the exact same service at the exact same price and increasing prices in lockstep, it actually ends up conferring no benefits on households at all. And these costs then end up being disproportionately impacting on families who, as we know, are already struggling to make ends meet. Having children under the age of 3 adds to bin costs. I know often maybe elderly families or a family with a member who has a disability and has additional waste costs all add up. And a single provider would, I hope, allow local authorities to apply downward pressure on prices, keep them consistent for the duration of a multi-year contract with that particular waste provider. So again, I want to thank Deputy Sherlock for bringing forward the proposed changes that's outlined in the bill today. I think we know this doesn't end here. There's a lot more work that needs to be done to deliver that system that is simpler for users, that incentivises and helps greater level of recycling and waste recovery, and ultimately leads to a greener environment for all our communities that are both urban and rural. Just on a final note, Count Corl, I'd like to give my thanks to you, to all the staff in Leinster House, all the ushers, all the caterers for all their work over the last term. I know Leinster House doesn't shut down for the next 2 months, but hopefully pace is a little less onerous and people are able to get a break.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Deputy. Now